What is that face?
All right, here we go.
What is the problem?
Okay, here we go. Hey, all you cool cats and kittens. Welcome to the Resistance Broadcast. I'm John Hoey. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is our discussion show, and we're going to get into the dark side. We're going to talk all about the Sith, not the history of the Sith and what we know about the Sith, but whether or not they may return after the events of Episode 9. Post-Sheev, post-Sheev, I guess you would say. With me in the present right now to talk about said potential future events are James and Lacey. Guys.
What was that opening?
It's from the Tiger King.
No, you were
I
too
know.
excited about it too. When she does it, she's like, "Hey, are you cool cats, kittens?" Like,
I know what it's from, John.
Oh,
You're just, like 3 months after the trend, and I wish people could see the beginning when you giggled to yourself. You did.
well, you two know
when
why.
he thought of it, I actually thought, "Is this the one episode of the show where I start with John thinking of it and laughing to himself?"
Yes.
and then it cuts to the intro.
Yes.
I mean, I'm at the fate of the edit, so whatever happened, happened. But
My favorite thing is when
that
you
was
think
my
of
episode
something.
9 title.
Oh, jeez, the fate of the edit. Oh, jeez. I mean, that is very true. Very true.
yeah, they edit movies, that's for sure.
No.
So
Okay, snarky. You know that's not what I meant.
So, well, he thinks that it was great, and I agree.
never said it was
Hey,
good.
Lacey, pipe down. So I think that we should remind everyone that tomorrow is the last day to submit an Apple Podcast review of our podcast for Rate the Resistance. July 3rd, tomorrow's the last day to enter. Mm-hmm. And to win a version of what James is wearing right now, if you're watching on YouTube, is our red limited Make Solo 2 Happen t-shirt version. It's unavailable right now to purchase. He's modeling it. He's doing the Price is the Right thing. Little jingle, little jangle. But what you want to do is go to Apple Podcasts, find us, the Resistance Broadcast, rate us, hopefully 5 stars, take a screenshot, tweet it to us at RBATSWNN, use the hashtag RateTheResistance, and boom, you're entered to potentially win that shirt. So good luck to everyone who has done it already. Good luck to everyone who's going to do it now. And never tell you the odds, because you can win. We have proof. Plenty of people have won those as we've done them in the past. But more so, we really do appreciate everyone rating us on there. It does help us show up more in searches for Star Wars podcasts. I mean, there's a new Star Wars podcast every day, so we got to pop up in these searches, and we appreciate everyone helping us out there by rating us on Apple Podcasts. So thank you guys. And don't worry,
come for the intros, obviously.
Obviously, yeah, the intros are it. I mean, you can just hop out at this point. But everyone who is not an Apple Podcast user, we're going to obviously do some more giveaways and other kind of stuff down the line. So don't worry about that. But thanks everyone for joining us here. How are you guys doing? You guys feeling good?
Yeah.
Yeah. Jinx. All right. Where are you guys at in terms of 4th of July? I know is going to be different for a lot of people this year. Do you guys have a usual thing that you would do every year for 4th of July, or is it just another day on the calendar? James, I'm looking at you because I'm sure Lacey is going to say no, I'm guessing. So James, did you have usual thing for 4th of July?
Lacey's gonna be like, Moscow Mule. No, I don't know. Yeah, we always get together usually with both sides of our family,
Mm-hmm.
my wife's side and my side, and we just invite them all over to the house because at that time, we have a deck and we have the pool so kids can go swimming and we can play, games and stuff in the backyard and cook out and do whatever.
Nice.
And then when it gets dark, you can see we're, so far away from the park where they do the fireworks for our city. So you can see them over the housetop.
Nice.
Yes, we don't have to leave our backyard. The worst part about it is that when we moved in, it was great. And then slowly over the years, there's this tree that's getting bigger, blocking our view. And I'm like, oh, man.
James, do you have a chainsaw?
Great. Yeah, I know. Well, we had the massive tornado that came through Dayton last year. It's like, couldn't it have taken out that one tree?
Just the one tree.
Come on, man.
Never the case. Lacey, do you usually do anything for 4th of July?
So I have a huge party with all my friends, and we just
Moscow Mule.
Hang out and do all these things. Some celebrities show up. Basically, everyone that's anyone is at my house for the 4th of July.
Wow, that sounds good.
That's not true. I said me and my family were all at my house.
Just like beers and, those drinking games that people still play when they wish they were still in college.
Ooh.
And
like what? Like cornhole?
Like anything that you would do at your house, John.
True.
I'm just kidding. I don't do anything.
Oh.
We used to play lots of cornhole on Warped Tour.
Yeah, it's a fun game.
And we started a little group where we were playing by the ACA rules.
Let's get out of here.
We looked up all
really?
No, I'm dead serious. Wow. Yeah, because there's nothing else to do. Like after every show, it's a barbecue.
Yeah.
Like it's just
nothing more rock and roll
out.
than following the rules of a cornhole, official rules of a cornhole game.
Well, see, that's the thing is that everybody else was this house rules whatever.
Yeah,
and we were like, nah, dog. You want to get into the cornhole? You got to do it right.
Oh.
James has been saying "nah, dog" a lot, and I know where he got it from.
Well, I wouldn't be too proud of that because it's a lame phrase.
It's okay. I'm lame. I have no friends. I don't do anything on the 4th of July. Does anybody want to hang out? Just tweet at me.
Moscow Mule.
At Lacey Gillerin, because apparently I'm the loser on this podcast.
I didn't even say what I do. What are you talking about?
Go ahead.
Say what I do.
What do you do, John?
Usually I would go out in the boat with friends and watch fireworks. But now that I'm a dad, I don't think we do that much, really. So maybe I'm the lame one. Twist. M. Night Shyamalan twist.
That's such a lie.
Yeah.
Mister, I have parties every weekend.
What are you talking
with
about?
50 people.
I do not have parties every weekend.
Yeah, okay.
You know what I do have, though? Segments. Like Will of the Force.
Great. I wanted this one to end 2 minutes ago. Let's go.
Spicy.
This isn't a segment.
So spicy.
This is the intro.
Lacey's very spicy today. Very spicy. That's good, though, because the Sith, we're going to talk about the Sith. They're a little spicy. So let's hop into Will of the Force, though, James. What's going on?
I fear nothing, for all this, as the Force wills it.
Will of the Force this week is, as usual, brought to you partially by our patrons, our resistance officers who support the show. You guys know that if you are tiers 2 through 5, you can submit questions to Will of the Force. We're going to get to those here in a second. But before we get to those, I do want to take a second to thank our top tier resistance officers, and that's our generals, right? Our generals right now are Carmelo, Andrew Staley, Jeremy Myers, Neil Shaw, David Probus, John Reese, Micah Harrison, Michael Gaines, Jetta Rosewater, Bethany, Russ Harbison, Kendall Gilner, and Val Trichkov. Thank you very much, generals, for being who you are and doing what you do. So head over to patreon.com and sign up as a resistance officer. Let's get up to Will of the Force. This week we got 5 questions. We got to blow through them quick, right? Because we want to get to that Sith discussion. First one coming up here is, will Lucasfilm reveal any significant details about future feature films by the end of 2020? Beyond what we already know about Taika Waititi writing and directing one, of course. Anything new? Anything coming up? John, what do you think? What's your will on this?
No, I don't think they will. I get the idea that more and more there's not a lot of certainty about the feature films in the pipeline for Star Wars, so I don't think we're going to get any new info about more movies this year.
All right. Well, Lacey, what's your guess? Stab in the dark.
Yeah, I think they will. I think, there's 6 months left in the year. There's a lot of time to give any detail. That's what the question is. So it could be a title. It could be concept art. It literally could be any single detail towards the end of the year. I just think that it's one of those things that it would be smart for Lucasfilm to give something, and I think they will because Celebration got canceled. I think that they're not going to leave fans hanging and give them no details till 2020 or 2021. Sorry, this year is so long. I have lost track.
It's really long. The fact that you just said there's 6 months left, that's like, whoa.
Yeah, but that's my answer.
I really hope they do, for sure.
Right.
I feel like right now they have this big open window where it's like, no, we finished our trilogy and we don't have to do anything, so they're not going to.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think you're right about the Celebration thing. The only thing that bums me out about this is they don't tell you anything about the movies ever. They tell you that somebody's been tagged for it.
The Mad Libs, like you said.
Do what?
The Mad Libs thing that you had brought up, where it's like, or John might have, where it was like untitled, this person.
Yeah.
He's developing
so if there,
yeah.
Just if there is an announcement this year, which I don't think there will be, but if there is one, it's going to be so and so is being eyed or targeted to work on this movie or whatever,
right?
And that just gives us another idea that it's in play.
Mm-hmm.
But like you were saying, I wish they would give us a title or concept art or an era or something, but
Sure.
they just don't. They never do.
I know.
So I'm just like, when I hear that, I'm like, man, I wish they would, but just nope, they're never gonna do it. Man, that it bums me out, John. You've been bringing this up a lot lately. That I just don't understand why they just can't seem to get it together as far as like telling us stuff. But I mean, even if they just straight up, instead, I don't care who's attached. If they just said, "Hey, we're doing this Knights of the Old Republic" or whatever, it's just that's it. It's done.
Dude, we had a heated discussion on the podcast last year about this, and it's like, I feel like you're coming around to my dark side team of what the hell are they doing over there?
Well, I still think that that Star Wars fans generally they want more. Like, I want them to do that, but I don't know that they need to from like a business or studio standpoint.
Sure.
Maybe. All right.
Like Warner Brothers isn't telling you anything about Harry Potter, that stuff's going on, but they're just silent about it. Well, let's do our next one. This one is from Resistance Officer, Commander Clay Harstad. And Clay wanted to know, will Ludwig Goransson, I forget how to pronounce his name, score a Star Wars film? John, I'm going back to you on this one.
I don't think so. I think he's just going to do The Mandalorian. It's going to be a special, unique thing, a unique sound, a unique brand for The Mandalorian. And however many seasons it is, he's going to do the music for it. And I think that'll be it. Even in the documentary, he said doing a season of this feels like doing 3 feature films. So I think it's already a big task for him. And he's going to do 3, 4, however many seasons of The Mandalorian. I think that might be it. And I think that's all I would want from him. I don't know if him switching to a film is the way to go. And I don't know if Star Wars films are going to change that John Williams vibe like the way The Mandalorian as a show has. So I think he's the Mando guy, and then he's going to go and do other stuff.
Yep. Lacey, you were actually supposed to go first on this one, but what do you think? I'll give you the next one.
Oh, it's okay. I actually wanted to hear what John's answer was before I gave my own, because my answer is actually the same exact answer. I don't think he will do a film. A couple of buddies, best friends. I don't think he's going to do a film because, like John said, Star Wars films so far have had a very specific sound music-wise with John Williams or people kind of doing something similar to John Williams. I don't know. It's so drastically different, his sound, and it works for The Mandalorian. And I think John's right in that it's because it's a TV show, it's a little different. So they were given that kind of ability to be different. Whereas I feel like the movies fall into this like kind of framework of what's expected. Yeah, I don't think he will.
Yeah, I don't think he will either.
Hey,
I think
Hey,
I think you
guys.
brought up. I think you guys brought up like real points, and I kind of think like, I don't know. I don't know that I hear. I don't know. I get. He did Black Panther, and I thought it was like creative and unique too. But I was like, man, I guess I just don't know that it. Like listening to The Mandalorian, I'm like, I don't see you doing a Star Wars film. Like,
Sure.
I feel like you're doing a really good job on this live action TV show, which feels like films often, but I just don't see you being the guy to peg one of the marquee titles or whatever. All right, we got another one here. Will there be a romance in The Mandalorian season 2? And if so, can you guess who it might be? Lacey, you're going first.
Yes, there will. With the woman from that village and her and Mando.
ooh.
I think because, we've heard rumblings that they were going back there, so it just made sense because they kind of hit that pretty hard in the first season, like to the point that Gina Carano was like, look, you can stay here and be with her if you wanted to. So I think that's going to be explored more in season 2.
John, what do you think?
James, I think you a while back brought up a good point about what Lacey's alluding to. So I don't know if you're touching on that. So I want you to go.
Well, okay, I'm not sure if we're talking about the same thing or not, but that was going to be my answer for who. But my thought process on is it going to happen in season 2, I don't know, because I think they could use her as a fallback in the end of the series. Which is like they could
That's
go
the
season
point
3, season 4, season 5, and then like the last episode of the series is him going back and she like turns around and you're like, he's home, baby. Back to square one. The only thing that I thought maybe you might bring up with my like question about her is that she was like, she knew what she was doing. Like she had all these like military stuff, and it's like, how do you know this stuff? And then they never touched on it. So I kind of feel like if you're going with the story that I said, then she never gets brought back up again. And I feel like because they alluded to her having some sort of history, they'll probably bring her back up again. So I'm going to go with yes, and that she will be in season 2, especially after what Lacey said, that there's rumors they're going back to that town or whatever. So what do you think, John? Where are you going with this?
It's tricky because I think you guys are both right in terms of who, and maybe that's the writing on the wall, and they set us up for that. She almost removed the helmet, and that was that point you had made a while back, James, on the Mando fan show, where you're like, she almost removed the helmet then, but it's going to be that final episode of the show where she does it, and then they're together or whatever. And I thought that was really well done. It's a good job. But I'm so like, I think like, what's a romance considered and that sort of thing? Are they going to kiss and that sort of thing? I just don't want to be the idiot who says no when it's probably going to happen. But I'm going to say no, just to make Will of the Force fun, because I think they may play the long game on this, and maybe they'll build it up a little bit more and leave it for a later time.
All right. Well, Commander Zoukas had a question for us, guys. And Commander Alex Zoukas said, when will, he's kind of pulling a fast one on us. When will we see a trailer for The Mandalorian? And I think we should play a little game here where we all take a guess on when we're going to see that trailer. What do you think? No, maybe no bets. I don't know about bets. Just, the handshake agreement. See who gets closest.
No pie bet.
When Celebration's going to be? Or was going to be?
So
is that a question or is that an answer?
No, that's my answer.
What's your date? Pick a date.
That's your answer.
The Thursday before when Celebration was going to happen, so that it gets the press that it wants.
So August 27th.
Yes.
Okay. I am going to say August 28th.
See, this is why it's dumb, because I think we all know that
That's
it
such
was
Price is
already
Right.
lined up, right?
Shenanigans.
Yeah, but I went. Yeah, it's a little bit, but I sniped you. It's also August 28th is my best friend's birthday.
26th.
So.
No, I'm just kidding.
August 28th.
No, I'm just joking. I said August 26th.
Oh, 26th?
Which would obviously be ridiculous.
You don't want to do a Wednesday.
No.
They wouldn't release it on a Wednesday.
All right, so the game's off. I think we all agree that the weekend or that time frame when Celebration was going to happen, whatever they planned, that's still on.
Mm-hmm.
Because Celebration or no Celebration, that thing is on the schedule for GMA talk and all this other stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's no doubt you're getting that trailer right around Celebration regardless. I am kind of curious though what that means for the question we had earlier about future films and stuff. Maybe those things would have been announced at Celebration, and because they don't have to, maybe they move on. But also, like I said, maybe they have the press all lined up, so we're getting that stuff around that time anyway. But
if I was at Lucasfilm, I'd spread it out. You have the time, why not? Just spread it out.
Yeah.
But Mandalorian has to be that time frame because the season 2 is dropping that fall.
Right.
So that's
I'm
the
saying
one
the
thing
other
you
stuff.
you have to go with. Yeah. Yep. All right. All right. Here's the last question for Will of the Force. Will the Sith return after Episode 9? So this is yes or no, and then we can go into the full-on discussion. John, what do you think?
Yes.
Lacey?
Yeah, I think they will.
That's your best Sith voice?
I'm not doing a Sith voice.
You know me and Apple. Like Craig Federighi said at WWDC 2019, no.
Ooh.
A big slam with a big
good.
period.
That's good for the discussion. All right.
Yeah.
I don't
All right.
get that
So
reference,
that's
but
it for Will of the Force. No, I know.
All right. Discussion time.
Obi-Wan once thought as you do.
Will the Sith return after Episode 9? Look, guys, the Jedi thought that the Sith were extinct for a millennia, according to Ki-Adi-Mundi in the prequels. Rey may have killed Palpatine and destroyed the Sith in Episode 9, representing all the Jedi. But can they return is the question. No one's ever really gone in Star Wars, right? So let's put our theories and speculation hats on and have some fun talking about a potential return for the Sith in Star Wars stories that take place after Episode 9. So not so much will we see the Sith again in future Star Wars content. We're talking timeline. Post Episode 9, can the Sith make a return? So this discussion idea spawned in my head when I saw some article from some site and like just going through Google or whatever that said the rule of 2 like ruined the Sith for Star Wars or something like that or whatever. And I was like, whatever. So my idea behind it is I think the Sith can return in a way that you'll have this like rebellious version of the Sith that goes and breaks the rule of 2 and breaks everything that came before it that led to its demise. So all that stuff that Darth Bane put in place that he thought would be good for his version of the Sith gets shattered. And you could have like 10 Sith just running through the galaxy and it could be just this chaotic thing more than what we're used to, where it's like the Master and the Apprentice, the Palpatine, the Vader, and all down the line. So I think it definitely could be a way to bring them back, and it could enter an aspect of unpredictability into it, because everything we know from all these visual dictionaries, these encyclopedias, the history of canon, the history of Palpatine, the history of Darth Bane, all the Sith down the line can be washed away, because you may have these people saying this is what the Sith is now, and still have that Sith brand on it and make it familiar for Star Wars. So that's where I'm at, and I think it's possible that Rey may have to encounter that. I know, James, you said no. Lacey, you said yes. So Lacey, why don't we get the yeses out of the way, and then we got to bring in James with the no. So what's your initial thought when you approach this idea?
My initial thought was that you can't have Rey being a Jedi with no one that at least matches her in strength and power on the dark side without having the Sith. Like, I'm not sure what that would look like. And it wouldn't really be the story of Star Wars, right? Like, good versus evil, good guys versus bad guys. If it wouldn't be the same if you had Rey going on adventures and trying to defeat some evil presence if they weren't strong in the Force like she was. Like, it would just be boring. Like, she would just be like an overpowerful person that would always, get her way, basically. Like, there has to be some check, whether it's a good or a bad one, Mm-hmm. So my thought was that it just makes sense to bring the Sith back. But like you said, do it in a way that's different, that's never been seen before, because, they did fall back on stuff that we've seen with Palpatine. So I think with the introduction of Snoke, we were like, what does this mean? Who is this? Like, where is this going? And then it fell back on Palpatine, which we already knew and we kind of had an understanding of. So I think there's always going to be bad people in the world and in the Star Wars galaxy. That's not going to go away just because you defeat one person. So you have to imagine that even though Palpatine was pulling the strings on a lot of stuff, there were other people more behind the scenes that were bad, if not just as bad as Palpatine, that are just waiting for him to get out of the way.
Okay. So that's a fair point, because Snoke was not a Sith, neither was Kylo Ren, but Palpatine made Snoke. So Is that a product of Sith then? So that's an interesting thing. So James, where are you at with this? You said no as our appetizer for Will of the Force. Why aren't the Sith coming back after Episode 9? Is it just boring at this point, or do you have a bigger reason?
Well, you guys have convinced me. I've changed my mind.
Get out of here.
I'm just kidding.
I was going to say, that was a first.
No, I see. That's the thing is, like, I see some of the points. Like, Lacey, you brought up, it doesn't feel like Star Wars if it isn't Jedi versus the Sith, right? Mm-hmm. But and I'm like, man, that's true. It's true. What are they going to do? But then, like, even as kind of you're explaining it, you're like, I still think the dark side is the dark side and will always be the dark side. And you can keep the Jedi because they're the core, but, as John explained, Snoke was not a Sith and neither was Kylo Ren, and we were totally cool with that.
Yeah.
For Force Awakens.
Yep.
Like, it did not matter. They were like, oh, the Sith are done. We know they're done. This is the darkness. The dark side of the Force still is there. Mm-hmm. And there are people out there, just like you said, that could be still waiting for Palpatine and that whole thing to just kind of play itself out. And even people who are, like, we know the Sith Eternal, right? They're loyal to the Sith, and yet it seems like they killed all those people off. I think my biggest argument for this is, I feel like, that kind of thing where they're like, well, there was the Death Star, and then they're like, well, just kidding, we're bringing the Death Star back. Mm. And then even then, after that was done, they still were like, let's do the Death Star again. It gets to a point where you go, stop. Like, I'm not buying it anymore. I want to see something else. I want to see something different. And I feel like they kind of did that with the Sith. In Episode 6, they told us the Sith were done. That's it. They were killed off. It's over. That's it. Mm-hmm. And then they tricked us and they brought him back. But I feel like the point of bringing him back was to even more so give Rey the nail in the coffin on the fair. Sith. And that's it. If you try to tell me that they bringing back the Sith again, I'll still love it because it's Star Wars and I'm a Disney show. But I'm like, come on,
that's fair.
Like,
look,
let's get into the other stuff. Like, let her be a Jedi. Let her spread the knowledge of the Jedi and the wisdom, and maybe even do it in her own way and not like so much the ways that they were doing before. Whatever you want to tell, but to say that, there was another Sith out there that was doing this thing, and I'm like, come on, can't we just stop?
All right.
But that's at that same time,
that's how I feel.
But at the same time, you could say the same thing about Rey being a Jedi. You're like, come on, the Jedi have been done so many times. Why is she still a Jedi?
Why can't she just be a good Force user?
Right.
Yeah. You know, that's a good point. And, you know, James, I'm going to push back a little on the Kylo Ren thing from a...
They said he was a Sith, though, I thought.
No, see, here's the thing. So it's a matter of circumstance for Kylo Ren, because he was a Sith fanboy. He had Darth Vader's poster on his wall.
I'm talking about the marketing leading up to The Rise of Skywalker was very, he's the leader of the Sith
They
troopers.
had his action figure do the Sith push or whatever. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
they're alluding to it a bit, I guess. But he was never technically a Sith.
Right.
But, you know, he was obsessed with the Sith. He had the Darth Vader artifacts, and he was obsessed with his grandfather. And I'll finish what you started implies to me, you know, that sort of journey. Would he have been a Sith if Palpatine allowed Snoke to have become a Sith? So is it that whole chain reaction where because Snoke wasn't, Kylo Ren couldn't be because he was his apprentice, and Snoke wasn't because Palpatine was going to allow him to be usurped by this creation of Snoke? Which leads me to, I need to know more about Snoke's manifestation, how he was made by Palpatine, I guess.
True.
You know, that sort of thing. So I'm going to push back a little there, but you make a great point about the overusage of it. The only thing that makes me think that you got to bring the Sith back is because it has such a long history. They were extinct if the Jedi were right, and they came back. But also, you got to have, like Lacey said, that dark side presence to fight against the Jedi who Rey is. And you have to assume Rey may train new people to become Jedi.
I hope it's Finn.
Using the teachings, me too, using the teachings from the books, which may have, the Jedi that we knew from the prequels kind of lost the way on that with their dogmatic focus on the control of the Republic.
Right.
But I look at the High Republic, and what they're telling us now is you're going to have the Jedi, and it's a time of peace, and the only adversary is going to be these pirates and that sort of thing. And I don't know if that does it for me as a big villain, the next Darth Vader, the next, you know, fill that role. Like we talked about Star Wars as a villain problem by having a gang of pirates be like the bad guys. So I think you need a heavy dark side presence, and which leads me right back to the Sith, because you need those lightsaber battles, you need those Force battles, and like Lacey said, if you have the Jedi and they're back and Rey is the Jedi, you need that balance, and I feel like the Sith is that balance. So I don't know, it's tricky to me, and a lot of it's thinking about the marketing, and like they need to have that, but the lightsabers and all the traditional stuff still kind of weaved in there without relying on the names anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like definitely don't forget that when we're talking about the High Republic era, they are fighting pirates, they are fighting smugglers, they are fighting Hutt clans and cartels and other things like that.
Armadas.
But the Sith are still around in that time frame. They don't know it
in the shadows,
but they could be pulling a lot of strings.
Yeah.
So you still could tell stories of the Sith and the High Republic. They're just not blatantly Jedi versus Sith. It's more like Jedi versus bad things, and they're trying to sort out why it sucks. Now, the other thing that I was going to say too is don't underestimate just plain old pirates and other things like that. And I know you guys aren't necessarily the biggest Thrawn fan, but and none of us were around really in this era paying attention to Star Wars, but I'm sure that many Legends fans and people who have been around for a long time and paid attention to the books and stuff did recognize when in the 90s when somebody came along and they told a story about someone who was an adversary who didn't even have Force powers, but just use of his intelligent and his strategic power. It's like government and political power can really be a weapon that they have to go up against. It doesn't always have to be mystical. They will tell you that villain was brought into the Star Wars world and accepted pretty heavily as like, no, Thrawn, that's Star Wars. This is new Star Wars. This is what happens to Star Wars after the mystical Sith are gone. And given the opportunity for a big name director or something like that to tell a story on that level about a villain who is just so smart and meticulous and just intriguing in that way that he doesn't have to like a Loki kind of like he's not using his strength really. He's using his character and his personality is his planning is the villainous that they're like it's tough. Like the stuff that he unraveled, we have to fight off using our strength and our ability, but at the end of it, it's all being masterminded by someone who doesn't have to be force-driven. And I would be open to a story like that. But like I said, I mean, it's very easy for them to pick it up and be like, yeah, all the Sith are gone. There's not a single Sith, but I'm into the Sith and I like the Sith. And I'm going to read this book on the Sith. And maybe I could be the person that starts the Sith again. So there you go. They were done. Then somebody else picked it up. I don't know. They could do it. But doesn't that feel kind of cheap?
I just feel like that it has to be a Jedi with the Force against someone that's bad with the Force. Like, yeah, you can have the political stuff, and they can have, like, even if you look at someone like Loki had powers, obviously, and then you have someone like Thanos who didn't necessarily have powers, but like all his people had powers that were doing all the work for him. So like, no matter what, there has to be somewhere in the power structure, someone with powers to combat Rey. Because they can't just be someone that's like, yes, I'm going to take away your ability to vote in the Senate. Mm-hmm. And then that's it. Like, Palpatine used a whole army that he created because people feared him. But then he also had people underneath him that had power. Like, Anakin, Darth Vader.
So, yeah. So, like, say Palpatine. Palpatine is a Sith, right? He has power.
Sure.
But let's just pretend for a second he wasn't, and he was just Palpatine, the human, right?
Sure.
With using his plan, he still could have executed all of the Clone Wars. He still could have executed and controlled all of the Inquisitors, you know, who weren't Sith, but they were dark side Force users with lightsabers and stuff. I don't know. It gets tricky, but it also reminds me of what Chirrut says in Rogue One, where he says, does he look like a killer? Cassian doesn't have any Force, but the dark side surrounds someone, a person who's about to kill. And so you think of the dark side rising as a bunch of just evil people. Regardless, that's the dark side, and it's coming.
That's fair, and it's definitely tricky because you don't want to rehash. You don't want the Death Star 4 version of Sith, you know,
right?
And I'm thinking, you know, they could pull a quasi bloodline angle where you have people trying to expose Rey to the galaxy. Like that's
sure.
Palpatine's granddaughter. Like, she is too powerful. She is darkness. Don't be fooled.
Like, fear her. Yeah.
Yeah. And they could try to coup and try to like do that sort of thing. And that could be the manipulating type of adversary. But I still feel like you need that big, heavy, dark side type of presence. We need that new villain. And what if instead of the marquee name, which is like the Vader or the Palpatine, someone from like the chosen one falls to the dark side, or I am the ultimate, you know, Sith Lord and all that stuff. What if it's like a Rey version on the dark side who like sort of came from nothing but was born into the dark side without any kind of ties to anyone that came before them, and it's just this weird sort of uprising as a random, a nothing. Or a bunch
someone
of
with a
like
bad childhood or something, like any type of comic book villain that has some type of backstory. Yeah,
like
like
the Rainmaker in Rian Johnson's story.
I don't know. I don't know, but
Do you know what I'm talking about? I can't think of the name of the movie.
Is it
Time travel
Looper?
one. Looper. Yeah. The whole story is about trying to stop the Rainmaker.
Oh yeah,
and you
right.
you realize the Rainmaker is like with you the whole time.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I'm just looking at different avenues they could explore while still reintroducing the Sith in a fresh way. Because, like we say, they're clearly continuing with the Jedi, with Rey. She's not abandoning that. So
right, and also Sith are just in everybody's vocabulary. Like, if you were to ask anyone that's seen Star Wars, you're like, okay, good guys, bad guys, Jedi, Sith. So it's like, it would make sense to continue using that terminology.
And they could say, destroying the Sith could have been destroying the Sith as it was currently constituted, being the rule of 2 Sith, or the Sith that was completely log-jammed by Palpatine. Like, once he gets destroyed, maybe that doesn't destroy the Sith. Maybe that frees the Sith in a different sort of way into the galaxy, or
spreads his energy into the galaxy,
or does a different type of Force awakening of dark side users who were just completely innocent people who felt something, and they become the new representation or manifestation of the darkness. Like, there's a lot of things they can do with returning the Sith without it being just here's the new Vader with a black mask on, or
right.
I'm laughing because I'm picturing they do get Oscar Isaac back for one movie, just so he could say, our darkest fears have happened. Somehow the Sith have returned, or whatever.
Again.
He just drops his line. They're like, oh, so, no, I mean, look, I think you guys are, you're open to leaning in the direction that I'm leaning. You're like, oh, his spirit goes out there and it causes all this darkness and stuff. But then you just want to call it the Sith. And I'm like, I don't think they need to do that. I think they could just go on like evil and dark and the dark side. And because I think that even though the Sith is a thing, remember the Sith is only a thing since the prequels. So the original trilogy just was like Jedi versus the dark side. Don't go to the dark side. The dark side was the bad place. It just so happened that Vader and the Empire and all that was the dark side. Even Maz refers to, that as the First Order, the Empire. It's not even about like a special religion where there's only like 2 people alive at a time. Dark side can be so much bigger than that. But now if I'm even remotely winning you over, I'm about to lose you. Trust me. I'm going to pitch a crazy idea. What if the next trilogy is the story of Rey falling to the dark side, and she's the villain and she's part of the dark side, and the Jedi, whoever they bring in to be, the main characters of that storyline, are the people that ultimately win her back after the 3rd movie, and they save her. And then it's not the Sith, it's just her falling to her problems and her issues that they explored in the original trilogy, but that's her to core, and they bring her back.
Talk about redoing things.
Fair. But I mean, that's the same as Luke, right? You had this idea of what he was going to be, and then they decide to go into, but years later, after you think you got it all solved, at the end of the day, she still was dealing with it.
Yeah, and I hated that.
She's a Palpatine.
It's like, can we get a Jedi that just stays on the good side, please?
Kenobi.
I'm not saying Luke didn't, but I'm saying like through each trilogy, it's like, Anakin, he fell, and then you have Kylo Ren, he fell, Vader is doing his thing, he came back, Ben comes back at the end of this one to the light. Then if Rey falls to the dark side, it's gonna be like, well, I'll tell you what, I'm gonna skip the rest of this movie, I'm gonna skip the 2nd movie, I'll watch the 20 minutes of the 3rd movie, and she'll probably die and come back to the light. Sacrifice themes.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that she would be like saved and then like be okay, like they don't kill her.
Like, I think Rey's temptation already happened with Palpatine, and she rejected it, so she crossed her challenge thing already. She's now in. I
think her temptation already happened with Ben.
Yeah, throughout the whole Jedi. whoever you want to say, I guess, yeah.
Like, he's the one that tempted her more than anyone else, not Palpatine or Snoke or anyone. She was very adamant she didn't want to go with Snoke. She said she wanted to take Ben's hand.
Yeah. No, for sure. But then she's faced with all those dark powers in The Rise of Skywalker when she finds out who she is, and then she has to reject not just the temptation, but also the lineage.
Sure.
So a lot of challenges that she overcomes. So it'd be weird for me if those two people didn't turn her, that some rando is going to be like, hey.
Especially Ben. If she was going to turn, she would have turned for him if she was going to.
Want to come to the dark side? Like, she's like, who are you? He's like, I don't know, but what do you think? She's like,
yeah, she would have turned
I never
already.
thought about it like that before. Okay.
Kind of random too, but that whole that scene of her almost going with him, like, I wanted to take your hand, but I wanted to take Ben's hand, kind of thing, even reminds me of the Clone Wars that just happened. Like, Ahsoka agrees to go with Maul and help him.
That was weird.
That makes sense to me. He says we need to go defeat Palpatine. And she's like, I agree. Let's go kill the dark side.
Yeah.
And then she says, but on one condition, tell me what's the deal with Anakin? And he's like, oh, well, Anakin's bad. Yeah. And so that's what causes her to be like, no, I'm not going with you, Maul, because I still believe he's good.
Yeah.
So I get that. And I understand why she would agree to go with him, other than the fact that he's a bad guy. But in this case, he's a bad guy saying, we need to kill the real bad guy.
Right. Yeah.
It's almost like
which is what Ben said in The Rise of Skywalker. He's like, I need you to help me.
Enemy of your enemy. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like, and I don't want to go look back too much more, but now that I'm thinking, like, her hesitation was there because that same situation happened with Snoke, where he's like, help me defeat Snoke, and then they beat all those guards, and then she's like, all right, let's go now that you're on the good side. And he's like, no. I'm going to start a new thing, and we're going to be baddies, like big baddies, and we're going to forget the Sith, forget the Jedi. We're starting a new deal. Take my hand. She's like, screw you, man. I'm out. And then, in The Rise of Skywalker, it happens again. She's like, I want to take your hand, Ben's hand. Not you. The good
guy.
Creep.
The good guy who just defeated Snoke with me.
Right. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's an interesting thing to talk about. I don't have any more really points on it. I think we all agree, maybe I'm wrong, that we do think that Daisy Ridley's going to come back as Rey for movies at some point down the line. Are we all in agreement with that? Yeah. And then we didn't even bring up, like, you brought up barely, Lacey, which I didn't even think of, is like the Finn factor. Do they, it's now is no better time than ever to make John Boyega a Jedi after all the flirting with him with the lightsaber in the first one, and then he had the Force powers in the third one. And then him being like a real Jedi in real life at this point with all he's doing. But that's an interesting thing to explore too.
I'd love that for him.
He would love that.
Yes.
So we got the light.
He definitely wants to come back.
I think he would come back without a doubt. But so we got the light side covered, but it's that whole, again, that thing we talk about on the podcast a lot is like, does Star Wars have a villain problem? And I don't know. Maybe Sith is the villain problem. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Lacey's wrong. Maybe James is right. But curious. Do you have any final thoughts on this, guys?
Bring back Vader.
Just bring back. Bring back.
Just throw it all out.
James's episode 9 zombie Vader.
Bring back Vader.
Hey, man.
Yeah.
I saw some artwork of like a cyborg Vader the other day, and I was like,
made a mistake.
Who made a mistake?
No,
Vader.
Yeah.
He's like, now I'm gonna really finish what I started.
Then they bring JJ back, and he's like, I'm just gonna troll the fans who hate me, and I'm gonna do like a guy who's a
I'm sorry,
Vader.
Who is that?
JJ?
Yeah, who? I don't recognize that voice.
Oh, you want me to do the JJ voice?
You can't give a JJ story without doing the voice.
Well, I was telling it in the third person, not like if I was JJ.
Nope, not on this show.
Oh, I don't know if I feel up to doing JJ today. Well, they hate me anyway, so I'm just going to I'm gonna bring back Vader, and it's gonna be great though. It's gonna be different. It's gonna be a different kind of Vader, a passionate Vader, a Vader with a project, and it's gonna be a lot of heart, a lot of breathing, a lot of mechanical breathing. I just can't wait for you to see it. It's gonna be great.
Incredible.
Yeah, James, any final thoughts on this? Obviously, you're still steadfast that you think no more Sith.
I think that as much as the sequel trilogy did do that whole like Force Awakens, like member berries thing. Like, yeah, Star Wars, Star Wars, it's the movies. I'm still in that world of, I read the comics and I read the books and I play the video games, and I am open to the idea of them going and exploring different things. That's one of the reasons why I'm hopefully and looking forward to that Rian Johnson thing where they just like explore something completely different, and I will hopefully be there to embrace and argue for the fact that that's still Star Wars, just because it doesn't have Jedi and Han Solo in it. It's still Star Wars because this galaxy is big and it's all about adventure, and like you were saying earlier, John, on past episodes, it's all about tone. Right?
Yeah.
The tone of Star Wars is the most important thing about Star Wars. It's not about a character or any specific prop.
Sure.
So yeah, I definitely still kind of stand on the hope that someone out there in their mind, when they were 20 years old and they were watching the sequel trilogy, they didn't know that when they were 30 years old, they were going to be the person who was going to be writing that story or whatever. That gets to tell about what the galaxy looks like when the Sith are gone, but darkness is always existing. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Cool. Lacey, any final words here on this?
Nah. I'm good.
Just that Finn must be a Jedi.
Yes.
Right?
And I hope Daisy comes
bring
back.
Darth Vader back.
Yeah, so my last thing on this is that it gives me a sense of like positivity to think of Rey coming back, but Daisy to start anew without have baggage tied to like Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, and not my character thing. Like she gets to, this is finally her deal. It's not the Passing the Torch trilogy now, it's hers. And what they could possibly do. Maybe that is something that's going on behind the scenes at Lucasfilm, because like Pablo Hidalgo said, maybe you won't see what I'm working on now for 10, 15 years. Maybe they are doing everything they can to try to come up with the new Vader. What is the new villain? Maybe it has nothing to do with the Sith, like you say, James. Maybe it does. Maybe it's a different manifestation of it. So a lot of this could be something that these discussions that they're having to actually make the stuff, while we're just here having fun podcasting about it. But let us know what you guys think in all the comments, whether that's on YouTube or if you want to hit us up on Twitter at RBATSWNN. Do you want the Sith to return? Do you think the Sith will return after Episode 9? Will it be different? Would it be the same? I think we're all set with Palpatine, but maybe something else could happen. Or like James said, maybe nothing at all, and we get into brand new territory. Either way, it'll be Star Wars, and hopefully we'll love it. But speaking of Twitter, you guys love to make us giggle around these parts, and Lacey is going to help steward us through that segment right now. Lacey?
Yeah, it's time for Resistance Transmissions. So the way that this works is every week, John puts up a crazy, wacky situation, and you guys give your answers via Twitter at RBATSWNN with the hashtag Resistance Transmissions. And then I read them on the show. I haven't read these. I don't know what the scenario is. So let's get into it. All right. So the situation is that Boba Fett is sitting in a theater in 1977 to see himself on screen in Star Wars, only to find out his scene was cut. I added the emphasis because there's an exclamation point. He vows to never act again. What does George Lucas say to Fett to convince him to return for Empire?
It's funny, reading the question, I was like, he got his date wrong. Like, you were reading the question, it's like Boba Fett sitting in the theater in 1977 to see himself, and I was like, oh, John got the date wrong. That was 80.
But
then it kept going.
All right, first up is John Reese at John S. Reese. Hi, John. And he said, you'll be the most famous character ever to do nothing. Just look cool, 3 minutes of work max, but super cool. Dope jetpack.
I love when I don't know. I know there's a lot of Boba Fett fans out there, but I love when people dog on Boba Fett for doing nothing.
He doesn't really do much. Next is Adam Odell at Odell Adam, who said, Boba, what if my scenes don't survive The Empire Strikes Back edit? They're worth a lot to me. George, the Empire, Lucasfilm will compensate you if they're cut.
Nice.
Next is Scott Gibson at Scott Gibby, who said, if you stick around, I promise in 40 years someone will paint your helmet silver and put it on a new character, and that has nothing to do with you. It'll be epic.
That's
well
great,
done,
Scott.
Scott. Next is Kevin Lewis at Thrawn Zon Fan, and he said, quote, I am altering the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further.
Nice.
There you go.
Nice.
Next is Blog of the Hut at Blog of the Hut, who said, quote, look, Boba, we've got this holiday special thing. It's a passion project. You can have a starring role. It's going to be incredible. Everyone's going to be satisfied. Boba walks away. J.J. Abrams takes off his George Lucas disguise and turns to Lucas, who is hiding around a corner. J.J., was that okay? Can I direct the next Star Wars now? George, maybe the 7th one.
I thought that was great.
That is good.
I like that.
Next is Jacob Hopper at Capt Hopper. So Captain Hopper. And Jacob said, I can bring you back warm or I can bring you back cold.
Ooh.
Ooh. George is like, I've got flannel on.
I'll bop you in the head.
And then he pulls out like a Van Wilder. He's like, write that down.
Yeah.
And last but not least is Mark at the Kind of Awakens.
There he is.
_kind_awakens. And he said, George, listen, I'll put an animated version of you in the holiday special. I'll give you an interesting gun. Boba Fett, cool. And that'll be canon, right? George, not really.
Not really. Yeah.
Oh, so good.
Someone's been watching the Galleries episodes.
Guys, thank you so much for your answers. If you want to be on the show, make sure to follow us on Twitter at RBATSWNN. Every week, John puts up a crazy scenario, and you guys give your answers. And the most creative, funny, interesting answers get on the show. And we talk about your handle, and it's fun, and you make me giggle sometimes. And yeah, back to you, John.
Thank you all so much for listening and watching and being a part of the Resistance. We hope everyone out there is doing well. I know it is pretty crazy, and a lot of people are going through a lot of stress, and hopefully everyone's staying healthy and safe and doing what you need to do to help us all get through this craziness going on in the world. But we're glad you stopped by the base to escape, because that's why we love doing this, and your support is a big deal with that. So I want to thank everyone for being a part of this. Make sure you do subscribe to the show if you haven't yet. You can do that on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spotify, whatever audio app you prefer. Just do us a favor, though. If your service or whatever has a rating or whatever, give us a rating on there. Whatever you got to do to help us out. Especially, again, the Rate the Resistance is still going on Apple Podcasts. So rate us 5 stars, take a screenshot, tweet at us at RBATSWNN using hashtag Rate the Resistance, and you can submit those until tomorrow and maybe win one of those Makes It 2 Happen red shirts that you can no longer get at teespring.com/stores/resistance broadcast. We have our brand new Gary the Porg design is out. It is being revamped, and he is out and about, proudly wearing his Porg costume, Gary being Carrie Fisher's dog, the French Bulldog. So we love that design. A lot of other stuff that makes all the 2 happen, shirts, all the other cool stuff we have, most of them designed by James right over there. Make sure you go to StarWarsNewsNet.com, everybody, every day for all of your Star Wars news, reviews, editorials, information, and more. You guys can find me on Twitter at Johnny Hoey and writing and editing over at StarWarsNewsNet.com. James?
Twitter and Instagram at Meyer Trunks. Pretty easy. I'm always there.
And
always tweeting.
Recently put out the book discussion for Shadowfall, the Alphabet Squadron 2 on the YouTube channel, which is just another example of why you should subscribe to us on YouTube.
If you haven't read that book and you don't plan on it, then go check out, we did a discussion on it, but also we did another video that talks about what happened in the story. So you can keep up with your canon without even needing to keep up with the canon. We try to go into as much detail as we can, but we're giving you just the plot, basically what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I watched the spoiler video, and it certainly helped me out a lot. Lacey, what's going on with you? Where can people see your funny musings and whatnot?
People can find me
On Lacey's Outpost.
Yes, sometimes. On Instagram and Twitter at Lacey Gillerin.
Lacey, will you... You're going to say no, I bet. Will you get the Baby Yoda bop it and do a Lacey's Outpost?
If you want me to. I could do it.
All right.
It'll be incredible.
She's going to lose because every time Bop It comes up, she won't do it.
She won't want to bop him on the head. Yeah. We hope everybody enjoys your weekend. Remember, the Mando fan show is no mordo until this faldo. So, I don't know why I just said that.
Such a loser.
It's so stupid. It really is.
Gordo, my favorite
No
Lizzie McGuire character.
I hope everyone has a wonderful 4th of July on Saturday. Be safe, though, because we want to get through all this stuff together. So wear your American flag masks and do that sort of thing. But we hope everyone has a great weekend. As you know, we'll always be back here with you on Monday morning with another episode right here on the Resistance Broadcast. So we'll see you around, kids.